Hello, everyone, and welcome to the last Tiny Brains podcast of the year. We've got a lot to look back on from 2023. Now we're in the midst of the holiday season. There's not much happening right now, but there has been plenty that's happened across the year. So we're going to do a very short little recap of some of the highlights of the year. We're going to start with all the hardware announcements, and there was announcements and launches, and there was a lot of them.
There was.
Um, So let's start with reeling off some of the things that have happened. We've got the VR XR Elite, the PlayStation VR 2, Big Screen Beyond, the Apple Vision Pro reveal, MetaQuest 3, of course, and Vario with the XR4. Yeah, headsets everywhere, headsets for everyone. Pete, what are your take on 2023 as a year for VR or XR hardware?
Yes, it definitely was a far more XR hardware related year, wasn't it? More than VR. The companies are really going into XR over the course of this year and into next year. Certainly, the start of the year with the VR XR Elite, VR5 XR Elite, that was showcased at CES at the beginning of the year, then launched. I'm not too sure how well that's particularly done for Vive, but certainly the next big one was PSVR 2 in February, which
Now
did
the
very well, or
The
generally.
PSVR 2 is being attacked quite regularly for the lack of first-party software. But honestly, I mean, I don't think we've ever been in a period for those of us who know VR. I don't think we've ever been in a period of time when first-party software has been the dominating force. Now, obviously, Sony getting their money and their studios behind software production for PSVR 2 would be fantastic. But it's always been a game or two every like 5-6 months rather than a constant flood. And looking at the PlayStation 5 software lineup itself, it's not exactly exploding with first party titles.
No, it's certainly not. They did have a little run at the start, as you'd expect when it launched. You had Horizon Call of the Mountain, then you had VR add-ons like Gran Turismo 7 that had a VR add-on and a few other bits and pieces. But yeah, there wasn't a huge amount, and they've come in dribs and drabs over the course of the year. But certainly, Sony hasn't seemingly pushed for a lot of first party titles coming out.
Well,
It has all been third party. You also had Firewall Ultra in the summer, and you've had a few shooters here and there which have been PSVR exclusives.
so the thing is, we don't know what Sony have in mind for the PSVR 2, but we also don't know what they, except a bit of a leak that came out recently. We also don't know much of what they've got in mind for PlayStation 5, right? So I'm sure there is more coming down the line for PSVR 2. So as someone who loved the original PlayStation VR, despite not being a big PlayStation guy, I love the PSVR 2 as well, and I think it's going to do very well in the long run for VR.
Yeah,
However, obviously doesn't have MR, which is a big, you know, as you said, it's the big push this year, and PSVR 2, at least currently, doesn't have anything in that regard.
it doesn't, but I still see mixed reality as it's in its fledgling years, isn't it? It's kind of where VR was back in 2016. It's now starting to come out. People are starting to figure out where mixed reality fits in and what they can do with it. And it's still going to be a good 2 or 3 years before we really start seeing some excellent sort of exclusive titles coming out for mixed reality headsets, even with the onset of Apple next year and whatnot. Whereas I think that will give PlayStation VR 2 time to develop, time to evolve, time to grow, and showcase some really good games eventually.
Before we move on, that last clanger was a big one that I didn't mention at the start. The Apple Vision Pro, um, coming soon, maybe ish, to somewhere near you if you live in America. Um, so obviously we've had what 6 months to digest the Vision Pro. How are you feeling about it right now?
Still as muted as I was when it announced. For me, in the UK, not going to see it. It's not going to do big numbers, even in the States. I don't think it's a tech product that's going to be a test bed for Apple, isn't it? More than anything else. see where people, the die-hard Apple elite, are really sat with buying this sort of technology. And for me, I'm not overly excited by it. It will offer some exciting possibilities in the next couple of years.
For me, it's the HoloLens again, right?
Oh,
It's
yeah.
what looks like a great piece of kit aimed primarily at enterprise and very high-end users. Apple obviously has a more appealing brand than Microsoft, so they will get a bit more of the consumer end than the HoloLens did, but the HoloLens was never aiming for that anyway.
No.
Um, and obviously Microsoft kind of backed away from the HoloLens, which is a real shame. But I don't think Apple will back away quite as quickly as Microsoft did. I can see them having incredibly low expectations and just using this to put their foot into the market, dipping a toe in the water with the Vision Pro. All the rumors surrounding already the success to the Vision Pro and the light consumer version and so on. This is the Google Glass era for Apple. It's their first test, and ultimately it's their vision for where personal electronic communications devices are going. So, I'm sure there is a vision in the future of a time and space 20, 30 years from now where you're not buying a phone anymore and you're just upgrading your Vision Pro. But, they got to start somewhere, right?
Yeah, exactly. I'm far more excited about Quest 3 than I am Vision Pro.
How many Quest 3s could you buy for the price of a Vision Pro?
I, I could equip all of my family with a Quest 3, so we could actually play some multiplayer games
Or you could just wear them all yourself.
and look really cool. Yeah, yeah.
To the software. Now, we at Tiny Brains have had the pleasure of working on a number of fantastic titles over the course of the last year or so. We have affected the Manor that recently launched on PlayStation VR 2 as a free upgrade if you already own PlayStation VR version of the game. There was also Resol Player 22 come into, or Resol Player, sorry, come into PlayStation VR 2 at some point in the future. We also had Spaceball, which launched on App Lab and Steam, fun little sports title, multiplayer sports title. Um, and Singer Studios with the Pirate Queen, which again is going to launch at some point in 2024. Watch out for more on that. And we were also involved in an AR sporting exhibition, which was held in Japan, which was very nice indeed. These, amongst many other titles that we've been working on and projects that we've been working on, are some of the highlights from the last year. Pete, what are you thinking about these titles?
They've showcased a great range of ideas within the XR space. Spaceball was a fun little title that was compared to Gorilla Tag, for example. You were you were playing basketball, you were playing soccer, you were bouncing off the floor, having to use your arms to bounce and leap from one end of the arena to the other. So it was a great physical little game, and the developers have had some great success with it so far. Whereas the Air Race AR stuff in Japan, that was weird and wonderful in a whole different category, wasn't it? Being able to sit there or stand there in Tokyo with your camera up like that, well, with your phone up, sorry, being able to see the planes flying through Tokyo. The planes had com recorded their laps elsewhere around the world, wherever the pilots were based, and then these were all these times and video footage was then uploaded and then shown around Tokyo that you could sit on a platform using either a headset, most people used a phone, and watched it in AR as the planes flew around the cityscape. So it's quite cool, really.
It was an interesting, again, much like the Vision Pro, it's still in the experimental stages of, communally watching digital overlays in a public setting. It performed very well for Psychic VR Lab, the company that organized this in Japan. Became very popular, and yeah, it was an interesting showcase of the technology at a very early stage. And again, alongside the likes of the Antic and Ep.4, Psychic VR Lab are one of the leaders in this space. So yeah, I was very, very pleased it performed well for them.
And I was really glad to see Affected, the Manor, the Complete Edition finally come to PSVR 2 because it's been one of those games that has been around for years. It's arrived for almost every single platform, and it's great to see PSVR 2 players enjoying it with all the upgraded visuals that it has.
And Fallen Planet Studios, again, I must say, the team that constantly welcome their audience. In the Complete Edition was a free upgrade. Now the PSVR 2 version is a free upgrade. That they're a lovely team, those guys, and they're working very hard on the Asylum coming in 2024. So yeah, watch out for more on that one.
Exactly. The Brits still going well in the VR market. Good to see.
So moving on to a discussion about the industry as a whole from 2020 over across 2023. There's been positives and negatives. Obviously, the Quest 2 has performed incredibly well in the holiday season by all accounts, which is great to see. The Quest 3 is performing. Whether it's performing up to expectations is another matter, but it is selling. So we're looking at a wider audience, especially following the holiday season. So there's definitely some positives to take from that. As we discussed earlier, we've got all this brand new hardware pushing XR in different directions, high-end VR, MR, got new AR experiences. As far as the industry is concerned as a whole, 2023 was a pretty well-rounded year, I feel.
It definitely was. There was a lot of positivity to take from it across the board, from hardware through to software, through to investments. There was a hell of a lot going on, and a lot to look forward to into the new year. But there was some downsides as well, weren't there?
Yes, now obviously the games industry as a whole, not specifically XR, but the games industry did suffer quite a lot of consolidation and layoffs in 2023. Now, there are many reasons this could happen. We are not CEOs of video game publishers and large corporations. We understand business models and the reasons why things may happen and why decisions have to be made, but we are not in that position to make those decisions. So it's easy to be an armchair massive corporation CEO, but ultimately it is the way that capitalism works and corporations work. If their revenues are not meeting expectations, they've got to cut costs somewhere. The good thing is, though, with all this buoyancy that we talked about for VR as a whole, there are a lot of studios that are hiring right now. So if anybody out there is working in the VR field and recently suffered a layoff, please do, feel free to reach out to us. We have quite an extensive network of people that are looking to hire, and maybe you can get a connection and potentially find someone for your next position.
Yeah, you can usually find positions on LinkedIn. I try and regularly share as many positions as possible, vacancies around the world on my LinkedIn account. So it's always worth keeping an eye on there for anything going on. And like you say, while some companies are downsizing, others are trying to ramp up their scale and are looking for new talent. So there are opportunities available. Whether there's enough to fill, to equal out what's been going on, I don't know.
We're going to leave you to this week, and next week we're going to have a forward-looking podcast looking at what the expectations for 2024 are. So please join us next week, and obviously reach out to us anytime in the links below. Thank you very much.